Hello, Cubs. Welcome back. Today is a very important episode. While exciting, very important. And our guest is someone who is experienced, well-knowledge, and a source of help here at Loyola, Dr. Carpenter. Can you tell us exactly what you do here at Loyola for the listeners out there who might not know you?
Sure. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist outside of school. I work with students in a variety of ways here. The majority of my time is probably spent with one-on-one meetings with students, similar to kind of the counselor meetings, but rather than focusing on, academic scheduling and college process, I'm really there focusing on the well-being of our students when it comes to their mental health. So we do some counseling around that. I'm also a pretty big advocate for students when it comes to the classroom and with teachers. I do a lot of consulting with parents, with teachers, and with the admin here on ways to support students in the classroom that might be struggling with their mental health. And then I'm also in charge of the care management team here, which is made up of the dean, the assistant principals, our director of health and campus ministry. And we meet every week to talk about students on an individual basis that might need some accommodations or extra supports. So we create individual plans for them as well.
So one thing we were wondering is mental health. Is that the same thing as mental illness?
Good question. So when you think about mental health, that really encompasses like how we interact with our social life, right? So it impacts our social life. It impacts us in an emotional way, and how we think about ourselves and behave. So just like physical health, you can have, poor physical health, and you can also have really good physical health. So with mental health, it's the same thing. You might be doing things that really take care of your mental health and you're doing great. And there might be times in your life where things are happening, or you might be more genetically predisposed to having poor mental health.
And that's a thing, like you can, like genetically, you can have worse mental health.
Yeah, we see a lot of like depression, anxiety, and some other mental illnesses do have a genetic component. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because, a parent struggles with that, so will you. We don't, it's not nature versus nurture, it's both. So you might be more genetically predisposed to something, but if your behavioral choices or the things you're doing in your life are protective factors, then you might never end up with a mental illness.
Huh.
So when our mental health is so poor, that can sometimes, lead to a mental health issue like a mental illness or a diagnosis. But you could also have poor mental health, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have a diagnosis at the same time.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. So let's get like really real here. I know, especially here at Loyola, but especially in the youth, mental health is it's a very big topic because right now we're in an age where students face many issues with their mental health, and how it's becoming more like relevant, but in negative ways sometimes. So what are things that negatively impact your mental health that you've seen a lot with students nowadays?
Yeah. I think there's so many things we could talk about with that, both like protective factors and maybe more risk factors. I think the conversation around social media has really been up in the news, and everybody's sort of talking about that. And we do know, and we have, research that supports like more time on social media. There's a stronger link to anxiety and depression. Not to say that all social media is bad and we need to never use it, but there is sort of that balance, right? We do know that in some ways it can be really helpful. It connects us to people. We might learn some good things from that, especially from professionals that have maybe accounts on there. But there's also sort of the bad side of it too. I think that things are a lot more stressful to some extent, just from working here for about, this is my 6th year. I think it's so hard. I think the college process is more challenging in a lot of ways. That adds a lot of pressure. I think the stakes are sort of higher and the expectations are a little bit higher than maybe previous generations. Not to say that it wasn't hard for other generations too. It's just a different world we're living in. So I do think that there's a lot of that. We also are getting better at talking about it, right? So I think it has always existed, but more people go to therapists, more people get diagnosed. So it might look like there's way more anxiety and depression in the world, but it could also be that we just have been better about diagnosing that and getting the support for it.
Oh, so you're saying that it's just that there's more diagnosed cases, not necessarily that there's more cases than ever?
I think both. I think that there
Okay.
is an increase, but part of that could be due to, again, like being more open, talking about it, seeking the help rather than kind of living quietly with it.
Yeah, I feel like Hugo's always been super open about mental health, and he's been more comfortable with than me. I feel like I'm a bit more of a skeptic when it comes to that because there's stuff like there's that entrance exam for colleges in China, like the Gaokao or something like that, and the stakes are so much higher there, and I feel like it's like first world problems, kind of that kind of thing where it's like, oh, what do I have to complain about? That.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that, when we look at different cultures and we look across the board in different countries, we are seeing similar things. So, especially when you look at like youth and adolescents across other cultures, we have similar rates of anxiety and depression. So I don't think it's necessarily based on just kind of one country struggling more than others.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that, like as Suvir mentioned before, I'm very open with my mental health. Like I tell my friends about it, like, oh, I'm in Student Wellness Council. I'm doing this. This is why I'm not at lunch with you guys on Thursdays or stuff like that. And like when problems have arisen, like between me and Suvir, like we were at a point where our friendship was a little rocky, but I spoke to him. I was open with it, and I felt so vulnerable, but in a way where I was able to like mend our friendship, and he was even a little vulnerable with me, which I don't get, not just from him, but a lot of students, and a lot of my friends our age. So one thing that I was always like asking them, why wouldn't you want to speak about it as much? And they're always like, but it's like, oh, like people, especially for men, always like bring it down. They're like, oh, you're meant to be strong and tough. You're not meant to be vulnerable and be human. So why do you think that mental health is like very stigmatized in our communities, especially here being an all boys school at Loyola?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's really answers it, is that it is an all boys school. And unfortunately, for men, they've kind of been socialized to, receive messaging that they're supposed to not cry, they're supposed to not have feelings or to not talk about it, which is ridiculous because we're human beings and we
Yeah.
all experience that. That's
Yeah.
something that's similar across genders. But women have been given a little bit more permission to be able to talk about that, which is really sad. And it's also part of the reason I like working at an all boys school, because I see that as like an injustice and would like to be a part of like a solution to that. We are also a very old school. So I think in some ways we can be pretty conservative around things like that when it comes to mental health. But I've also experienced a lot of the other side of that, like parents that are really willing to find therapists for their kids, wanting them to get that support. For the most part, I don't get a ton of pushback on that. There's definitely some cases where it's not really accepted in some families, or some of the students are more resistant and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want us telling their teachers about it, which is also unfortunate because our teachers are just like grasping at anything and they really want to know about that because they want to help and be better with their students in that regard. But if the student isn't willing to talk about it, then the teachers can't really do anything about it. So I do think it's changing. I think hiring someone like me has been helpful in that, and showing that we want that to be part of our culture. But these things take time.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
Well, how long have you been here for?
This is my 6th year.
I've never heard of the Wellness Center before. Hugo was like, oh, I like joined the Wellness Center. I want to do an episode with them.
Yeah, it's hard to get the word out a little bit. I mean, I do a talk with the freshmen every year at orientation, and I think the counselors try to kind of let students know about me to do meetings. But because a lot of my work is individualized, it's, certain students that are aware and that are using me as a resource, and then maybe others that don't know about it.
So going into what the Student Wellness Council is, like I'm currently in training to join that.
Mm-hmm.
So what's, just for like people who haven't heard of it, why did you create it, and what is the impact that you want this council to have on the students here at Loyola?
Yeah, good questions. So I started this last year, and I was really just kind of piloting it, trying to brainstorm and figure out what we could be doing. The reason why it's so important is that there is benefits in having adults support teens and to have that relationship with them. But it's also really important for teens to be able to help each other. Even with adults, like there's group therapy for a reason, because you're around peers that are going through similar things, right? Or that can relate to you on a different level. So I think there's a real benefit to that, to having students that can mentor and walk with other students that have maybe had similar experiences in the past, and they can kind of learn from that. So that's really the goal of it, is to have an opportunity for kids that maybe feel more comfortable talking to their peers, rather than the adults on campus about it. I mean, ideally, we would hope for both,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
But there's such a benefit to having peer relationship stuff and peer counseling. So that's why that was started. It's only our second year this year, and we're gonna really brainstorm ways to make it more well known and accessible. I think, again, it's really tough with trust and confidentiality and people feeling like that's something that they can trust in. So I do think that's going to take time too to build up that program.
It's like, well, I'm starting to think about the Big Brother system here. Like, there's something like that students trust as big brothers because they do certain activities with them. They're being eased into Loyola through that relationship. So I think that they start trusting those people. Have you thought about maybe pairing with them or?
Yeah, we've talked about doing, so there's a training called Mental Health First Aid, and they actually have like a teen version of it. So teenagers get trained in how to help other students when it comes to mental health stuff. It's partially what I use for the training for the wellness group, but we have talked about maybe making that a part of the Big Brother training too, just because there's probably times when, in those small groups or in those activities, with just through that relationship naturally, that people might talk about what they're struggling with. And so we'd want, the big brothers to be prepared for that from a mental health standpoint. So yeah, there have been some talks there.
Okay. Another thing is I was talking to my English teacher today and he was like, "Oh, I think you're being too hard on yourself." Because I was like, "Oh, how can I feel like I'm lagging behind." And then I think part of it is motivation. Like, it's good to want more, but then how do you find that balance with your students where they're not like in a toxic way? They're not too much.
That's good. I do see that a lot. I see a ton of pressure that students are putting on themselves. And we need a little bit of pressure, right? Because that is motivation to actually study, to do things, right? We need to feel a little bit of stress and anxiety. But I think that sometimes, in most cases here, students are really, really stressed out. And then that gets to be a barrier and it gets in the way of their performance. It's the same thing with sports, being in a play, playing an instrument. Anything we really do in life a lot of times is related to performance. And so there's a lot of performance anxiety, imposter syndrome, to the point where sometimes kids that are really high achieving and high level end up feeling burnout and they struggle with motivation. So that's why it's important to take care of your mental health, right? Like the stress levels you need to kind of keep balanced. You'll probably avoid burnout that way and keep your motivation up. But that is something I do work with students on. It's not something that gets fixed from like one meeting, but a lot of that is really like adapting your thinking. So at that point, you've gotten yourself into sort of a maladaptive thinking process where you sort of automatically go to a certain way of thinking that is not helpful. And it's a lot about recognizing that, catching it, and like using evidence to change that to something that's actually more accurate and more adaptable. Once you practice that a bunch, it starts to become your personality and your way of doing things.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Like when I went to go talk to Dr. Carpenter like this year about like all my new things, and she's like, "You're doing a lot, Hugo." I'm like, I'm in a bunch of APs and honors. I'm running a bunch of clubs, and I'm participating in a lot of things. And she's like, just make sure that you're doing it like to what extent that you can. Don't push yourself too much. If a class gets hard, drop it. So it's like, just knowing, for everyone listening, just know that it's okay to not do everything. Like, it's okay to be strong in things that you like, but that doesn't mean you have to add more on top of it. And some people can definitely do that. Like me currently, I think I'm doing pretty good. Like I'm doing all my stuff. I'm not stressing out too much, and I find joy in being busy, which I wasn't as much freshman and sophomore year. But some, when they're like getting in all these things for like college apps, and they're like thinking, "Oh, college apps. I need to do a lot of stuff, blah blah blah." And then they start getting like burned out, and they're like, "I don't want to do school. Like, I'm getting tired of whatever I'm doing. School's getting harder. My grades are dropping." Don't push yourself to those levels where you end up doing that and then affects you even more than you think it would have. Which is just a little point I wanted to bring up because I think that was something we spoke about.
No, so I'm always like, I'm pretty big on physical health, and also I'm really big. If I ever think about mental health, it's improving your mental state so that you can perform better, or improving your physical health so that you can, be in a better space in your mind. I actually found that coming into sophomore year, I was I was performing better in school because I had started going on morning runs, and it helped me focus and it gave me more of a direction and order for me to go into. Have you maybe recommended that for your students or?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think, part of taking care of your mental health, exercise is a huge component to that. So when you're exercising, it's the reason why that helps your mental health so much is for a few reasons. One, you're getting a lot of neurotransmitters that are going through your body. So it's increasing dopamine, which is related to reward and motivation. So that might be why
Oh,
after you run, you felt more motivated throughout the day. It's also increasing serotonin, which is that feel good chemical, makes us feel good. Your endorphins are higher. Those are like euphoria and really happy feelings. It also lowers cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So people that are stressed out have high levels of cortisol in their body. When they run or exercise, it tends to lower those. So that's helpful in managing like anxiety and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to exercise when it comes to mental health and your performance. The last one that's really helpful when it comes to learning with exercise is that your body is producing more glutamate and GABA, which is directly related to learning, memory. And so you can see how that would be related to school for sure.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. When I say I go to the dances, I'm like, that's my excuse for my dopamine. Like I'm relieving my stress. No more school.
Yeah, Hugo's a beast on the dance, but like we went to a dance last year and he had like gone through like 5 bottles of water and he just did not stop sweating. He was just on the dance floor only.
Severe's working out every day and running. For me, those 3 dances that happen a school year, that's my dopamine release.
That's good.
That's my gain. But something I want to ask, because I know like that's what the Student Wellness Council was, is to do peer-to-peer conversation. How can people who don't know about this council or who are not in it, or like teachers in general as well who are listening, how can they help like those students as well during like situations like this?
Yeah. Well, one thing is, once we finish the training, which we'll wrap up this week, we'll send an email out to the whole community with like lists of the people that are on it, their picture and their emails so that students can reach out to them if they want. A lot of times the counselors will suggest that too. They'll say, hey, I think you should talk to someone on the council, and they might know someone in particular that they think would be a good match. So those are kind of ways that we'll get the word out, and how people can connect that way. And it's, it's confidential. So it's a really good resource. In terms of helping students with mental health, I think the biggest piece is like we need to we've already started. We need to be better about making that normal in our culture here, that we just talk about this, right? So a teacher can only help with what they know. So if they don't know a student is struggling, that's really hard for them to support and do anything about it. And trust me, they're eager for that. They want to know, and they want students to communicate with them. They care about them so much. So I think having a culture where it's okay to be open about that would help. But I think a lot of it is balancing all the extracurriculars you gotta do.
Yeah.
My experience here is that people tend to sign up for too many things, and then I don't know if they do anything particularly well. I think they're stretched a little too thin, and like everybody's so talented here and so smart, so they're doing pretty well. Like from the outset, it looks like they're doing a really great job, but I know for a fact that if they were really only committed to like 1 or 2 clubs, then they would be doing super well with those clubs and being really productive, as opposed to being kind of like 50% in everything they're doing, which looks like maybe a student from another school's 100%. So it's hard to see it, but
Yeah.
that's been my experience, is that people are spread a little too thin here to be keeping their mental health good, their physical health good, their grades up, their relationships up. Like it's all too much to be doing. So I think taking a look at what we're putting on our plates would be helpful.
Yeah, Hugo also was telling me that sometimes counselors refer their students to you in case something's like more specific and more your system. You just said that as well. So
Yeah. So counselors do a little bit of personal counseling, but again, they also do a lot of the academics and the college piece. So
yeah,
for me, that's all I do, and that's what I'm specialized in. So I can help with a little bit more skill-based stuff, and kind of some of that cognitive work that's helpful. And it's just better to have more people involved and more people on your team.
Yeah, definitely. So just as more of just like a question for you, like what was the moment that like told you that you wanted to pursue this? Like, because obviously there's people who like myself, like I want to do this to help people, but I'm not an adult or a professional, of course. So like, what led you to go on this journey for yourself to be?
Yeah. I want to say I was in high school. I also went to a Catholic single-sex school. I went to Mayfield, in Pasadena. And I was an athlete, and we had like a athlete committee doing service and stuff. We partnered with an orphanage in Cambodia. So for the whole year, we were kind of building relationships. We were asking them what they needed, and then sort of raising money, buying supplies. And then we went out there and got to sort of form a relationship between the university there and this orphanage, which was like the least resourced, like under-resourced, they didn't have a lot of stuff. So we were really trying to build that up. And we went there and we thought of like toys, like a water purifier, food, right? Which is important. You got to meet basic needs first. But then when I was there, I started interacting with the kids, and they were all pretty much there. They were orphans. So most of their parents had passed away from AIDS, unfortunately. And there was a ton of trauma and a ton of just mental health stuff going on that didn't even really cross our minds, right? We were just focusing on basic needs and kind of what they needed to survive. So that got me really thinking about, I would be sitting there and I didn't have anything that I could give them for that. Okay, I was in high school, so that's understandable, but I never wanted to be in a situation again where someone was talking about struggling and being in, with their emotions or their mental health, and I wanted to have the skills to be able to actually do something to change that. So that, led to me taking psychology in high school and then majoring in that and then becoming a therapist.
Yeah. Wow, that's a very, very impactful reason why you did that. That's very nice. So just to speak on as someone who is open-minded with like mental health and is like, accustomed to it, who's gone through situations in the past where made me open to like learn more about it. What do you want, like just like advice or like something to those people who are like, oh, I'm a little interested in it, or like I want to see if I can look for help? Like, what are ways that people can find resources or stuff like that here at Loyola?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time with students, not necessarily because there's like a big mental health crisis going on. Some students come to me and they are just really passionate about mental health and really enjoy learning about that. Just like they, students that like going to the gym and working out. They're focused on keeping their mental health good. So I do talk a lot about positive psychology with them. I know kids from other things like clubs that I'm involved in or trips that I've gone on. So I'm not always in there talking about, deep, intense stuff all the time. Yeah. Sometimes these are just, kids I have a relationship with from like an adult and then the student relationship. And so even if someone's just curious about it, like just talking to me about it in the halls or wherever, and also their counselor, I've done quite a bit on making like links to things that are helpful for just sort of like self-exploration and self-help on the school website. So, it's under student life, and then you click health and wellness and then resources. And I basically have like 15 to 20 things related to like numerous topics. So, anything from like suicide to anxiety to coping skills. There's like tons of videos and websites linked there. So someone might start there and just do kind of some self-help stuff and see if that helps them. And then just coming to talk to really any of the adults on campus, they'll point you in the right direction from there.
Yeah, well, going back also to your cannonball moment, we could call it like that. I guess is a cannonball moment, like how we study it in CY2. And so okay, I've lost my thought here.
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I have difficulty understanding, like, would you call it a desire to understand what they were going through and like understand how you could help them? Because
in terms of for myself, like why that one made me want to be a therapist. Yeah, I mean, I think I always find people's stories interesting, and their like perspective on their own life or the world around them. I feel like you can learn so much from other people just through conversation and hearing about their lives. So I've always found that part interesting, and I think I've always liked helping people. And then on top of that, I'm just sort of fascinated with why we as humans act and do things for whatever reason, right? Like, why do some people have this kind of personality, or why do some people, how come they've built resilience when other people haven't, and how do you build resilience? So those kinds of things, like everything to do with human behavior, is interesting to me. Couple that with helping people and liking to hear their stories. It's kind of like therapy sort of made the most sense.
So just to wrap it up here, to everyone listening, We asked Dr. Carpenter to be on here today because we knew that while it's not talked about enough, mental health or the awareness of it or anything that we spoke about today, we want you to know that if you're ever having like issues, however big or small that they are, as Dr. Carpenter mentioned before, there's help here at Loyola through your counselors, through her, through systems through websites that she added on Loyola's website, through everything. And if you need more than that, you can find it on your own or even ask her because she has many resources. So we just want you to know it's okay to ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. And even if you just ask your friend for a little like advice, like, do you think I'm over stressing about this or something like that? And just talking to the people around you, because there's people who can help you, even if it's a therapist or just your friend, like I had my talk with Suvir. So just know it's okay to be vulnerable and just be real with people. So just wanted to add that point, and obviously thank you, Dr. Carpenter, to be on here today. This is going to be a very influential and important and impactful.
Yeah, I think this will be one of our better episodes. Yeah,
this was a nice one. I'm really
of the two that are going to be coming out.
Of the two so far that we filmed, I'm really happy that you agreed to do this. And just any last words if you have for the listeners?
I just want to say that just to reiterate too, I'm not sure if people know this or understand it, but it is confidential. So I don't tell admin anything. I don't tell parents. I don't tell teachers anything. It stays in the room. Of course, there are like some safety issues that I can't keep secret, but for the most part, things stay confidential. And there's really nothing that surprises me or that's new for me. I don't think people realize here that students can be really struggling with stuff, and it's not abnormal. So everything from like suicidal ideation to abuse, I've seen it all, and I work with students every week on it. So I just want to make sure that students know that they're not alone if they are struggling with something really, really severe and really big. It's not something we haven't worked with before, and again, it's confidential. We don't have like files on students or anything like that that go anywhere, so it is a really good opportunity to be able to learn and to grow in a place that things are going to stay confidential in.
Yeah, and they can find you next to Monsieur Abner's man cave, right?
Yes, which is now the women cave.
Oh yeah, Dr. V's at. I don't know that, but
yeah, so I'm in A302. But students can either, go there in person, or they can email me, or they can ask their counselor to, get an introduction to me. So those are all kind of the main ways that students have found me.
Okay.
And we're here with the student shout-out section for our mental health podcast episode. I'm your host, Mateo Cuenca.
I'm your host, Andre Lopez.
And I'm Anthony Stepanelli.
And we're here with Nelson Pye.
What's up? How's everybody doing?
Nelson, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so what's up, guys? I'm Nelson. I'm student body president here at Loyola. I'm a 3-year starter on the football team, also a team captain, co-president of the African American Student Association, and etc.
Awesome. All right, let's get into it. So my first question is, have you ever had to lead through a really tough time after a loss, maybe in football, and kind of conflict or stressful school event? And what did you learn about your emotional leadership from that?
Yeah, so I guess so last year, my junior year, we had a game against Sarah. We were up, I think it was 21-0 until the start of the fourth quarter. Then they scored 28 points unanswered in the fourth quarter, and that game was just kind of like a shock to all of us. Like, I guess we thought we had a lead, we just kind of let up. But from my perspective, my mindset, I was like, we can't let this happen again. So coming back to this year, we played them actually at SoFi Stadium, so that was really cool. I told him we can't let this lead up again. We have to stay strong, stay powerful, and believe in each other. So that's what we did. We came out with the W, 10-13.
Yeah, congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
You're known as both a leader and a teammate on the football team, but how do you personally define mental health, and what does it mean from your perspective?
Yeah, I guess mental health from my perspective, I just kind of treat every day as living in the moment, because I can't believe I'm already a senior. 4 years flew by, wow, just time flies. I never really thought I would think of it like that until, I'm already a senior applying to colleges and things like that. So I just try to live every moment, every day, take it at a time, try to have fun in everything I do, whether that's school, with my teachers, especially with my friends. So I just kind of take each day little by little and not try to worry about things I can't control and just worry about what I have to do in the moment.
Yeah, so Nelson, obviously you have a lot on your plate with just a lot of activities on campus and off. So what are some essential habits in your daily routine that kind of help you keep a positive and a healthy mental state?
Yeah, so I was raised in a Catholic household and I went to Catholic schools my whole life. So that's been a big part of me, like Jesus and God and my faith has been a big part of my life. So every time I wake up in the morning, I used to always like tell God, what I want, what I wish I could have, but now I just learned to be thankful for what I do have, my family, my friends, a great life, a lot of support from this community at Loyola and like my family. So I always just like thank God, try to be thankful for the blessings I have and not try to ask to what I want because God, has a plan for all of us and I just kind of leave it at that.
We're here with Marwin Palines, who's going to be our student speaker for today. So we're just going to ask you a couple questions of how you feel about mental health, like the overall rundown of it, and just, have fun. Just be comfortable just so people could hear a student perspective on it.
All right.
So my first one is what sparked your passion for being like in the Student Wellness Council, just representing mental health in general?
Yeah. So I feel like just in high school, especially going to an all boys high school, mental health is often overlooked, and it takes like certain circumstances that makes people want to open up. But that really shouldn't be that way. Shouldn't be that way. Like students should feel comfortable, in their own skin and be able to talk about how they feel. What got me into it was, me personally, I've like struggled with my own like mental health issues since I was like a child, and like I've always just been aware of how I've always felt, and going to this high school, it was like a significant change. Like nobody was like kind of being open. It was all just everybody had their own cliques, and I think something everyone has in common is at one point they feel things. Like everyone has their own feelings. And they have a right to express that. So, that's why I got into the Student Wellness Council.
Definitely. What helps you stay grounded? Like, what helps you, like, when you're, stressed or, like, mentally not 100%? What keeps you grounded and keeps you going?
It's a hard one because, like, I feel like for high school students, especially, it changes over time. Things just kind of become different. You have different circumstances, and what grounds you changes. But what stayed, like, consistent for me, I guess, was just being with family and friends, being with other people and not being alone, because you are your own biggest critic, You're not, when you're by yourself, sometimes, you can just kind of critique yourself in self-harming ways, and it's not very productive. So I feel like what really grounds me is, not like spending more time with my parents and like my friends, like kind of forcing myself to go out, because if I don't, then it's kind of like, it's just me and myself and I. And, sometimes, like you don't feel like you're good enough or you're up to par, but if you hang around like people who love you, then you'll know that you're like more than enough.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that because like I always felt closed off from everyone. I always put a shield around myself. I never wanted anyone to come in. But when I started, like going to a therapist and actually talking about it and then opening up to like friends and family, especially here at Loyola, like there's a couple of my close friends that I'm open to. I definitely say that allows not just me, but I feel like other people, if they have tried that, they'll be open to it. They feel more comfortable with the people around them. And then they see that it is in your head, but when you share it with people or you're just more comfortable with people, it allows you to distract yourself from that. I definitely agree with what you said.
Yeah.
What are some things that you think would make people be more engaged with this problem that we have here? How people have problems, especially like mentally, but like how do you think we can fix that and make it more engaging, more relevant for students here at Loyola to be more involved in it?
Yeah, that's a difficult question because like like our parents, like from my parents, like mental health wasn't really talked about, and I feel like that's how it is for a lot of people. Like it takes a lot for people to be vulnerable. Like there have to be certain circumstances, and you have to like know them for a while. So like that question is definitely like it's difficult. But if I had to say, it'd just be people just sometimes just have to be open. Like just put yourself out there. Obviously, like within caution, like like within people But if we're talking like publicly, like I think the Student Wellness Council really helps. It's just in terms of publicity, like we're kind of struggling right now.
Yeah.
But like come after early action deadline, me and Robbie O'Rourke will get an Instagram going and we'll work on publicity. Just because we want students to know that there are people there for them,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're feeling isolated and alone. Like
Yeah.
not just us, like the Student Wellness Council, but counselors, Dr. Carpenter, their friends. Because at the end of the day, I think everyone at Loyola has a responsibility to be there for each other. As brothers, we have that kind of responsibility to not only be there for our own Cub brothers, but for others as well.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of our responsibility, and that's what we're called to do. And I feel like that's the only way how the issue of mental health will get talked about like openly is if it just becomes a trend and everyone starts doing it. Because I feel like it is definitely necessary to talk about. It's a prevalent issue that is rarely brought up until it's gone too far.
Yeah.
So yeah, just talk about it more. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because at the end of the day, the people around you will be there for you most.
This was a question that a student actually asked me that I wanted to personally ask you, but what would you do if someone who wants to help a friend who's struggling mentally, like what's advice would you give them to help that person who doesn't feel comfortable going to, obviously, a professional?
I feel like just being present, because obviously we're not trained to be professional therapists. We can't give them advice and then suddenly their problems will go away.
Mm-hmm.
I think the presence of it is what matters. Like the fact that you're there and available for that person speaks a lot on not only your character but theirs as well. Like, for example, with me, I've had friends where they've been struggling with their own mental health issues, and I just let them know that I'm there. If they need anything, like what I mentioned before, like it's just people around you help you so much,
Mm-hmm.
and this is your opportunity to be one of those people. Like, be the support for others that either you had or wasn't, or you like lacked. Like the support that was there for you or wasn't, be that support for others. Be that man for and with others. So yeah, I feel like that's the only advice. Like, but also set boundaries, because we're also humans. We can't 24/7 be there for that person.
Yeah.
So just know your limits, because at the end of the day, you go through your own stuff as well, and you can't always be 100% for anybody else but you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like just having that balance, because even like say if you did give that friend 100% of your time, your effort, you'd spend all your life like worrying about them. That's going to become the norm for you, and you're constantly going to have to be that person, or else you'll feel super guilty when you're not. So just set boundaries, let people know that you're there for them, but you also have to be there for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Because then if you are 100% there, then it's going to be the norm for you. That's going to be your life, just being there for that person. You're not going to be able to find yourself or even grow within yourself and develop a stronger, mental wellness for yourself. So definitely, Loyola hasn't brought it up to light too much about mental health. So what are some things that obviously the Student Wellness Council wants to start promoting this year or start working on this year?
Like something we're working on is obviously like publicity, making an Instagram. We're working on like Mental Mondays, where we just kind of have a small activity in like the gym or Caruso or something, where students can kind of decompress. Especially just like the workload at Loyola is entirely different to other schools, and you're under a lot of pressure here. And we, students and faculty, recognize that, and we want to create a safe space in which students can feel vulnerable and open and safe. Like, I was going to talk about this with Dr. Carpenter, but we're thinking of having house meetings, where we just kind of have a circle of people just be open with each other. Obviously, whatever is said in that room is confidential. But something I do have to mention is that all Student Wellness Council members and faculty here are mandated reporters. If you don't know what that is, it's if you're saying that you are going to end your life, or you are being like your life is currently under danger, or you are a threat to other people. So if you're a threat to yourself, someone's a threat to you, or you're a threat to others. So obviously, like, we want to create that safe space for Loyola because there's a lot of spaces here where like a lot of students don't really feel comfortable. It's not like we're not a perfect school. There are spaces in which students feel isolated, cut off, excluded, and I feel like the Student Wellness Council should start doing a job of making those spaces for those students, creating a safe space in which students can feel open and vulnerable, and they don't have to feel the pressure of Loyola or peers or just life in general. So that's kind of what I have planned going forward. And obviously, I'm not going to get all of that done in the year that I'm here. And that's why I invited you to join the Student Wellness Council. And I hope you invite other students as well, starting next year. Just because we need that succession, because this isn't just going to be like a 1 year and it's over type of thing.
We need this to continue on and
because
prosper.
Unfortunately, in the dynamic that Loyola is and most schools are now, mental health is rarely talked about. Even though we have the resources for it, it's kind of frowned upon and looked down on, and it's not really where I want this school to be. And it only starts with a few people to incite change. And I know that the people that I invited on the council, the people that are currently on the council, will continue to keep that dream alive of wanting to make not only the school but this world a better place.
Yeah, definitely. Something I wanted to bring up, because some people think it could be like this. Do you think mental health is somewhat stigmatized for the male, like, audience? Because I know there's been a lot of situations where people are like saying, "Oh, you're a man, you got to be strong, you have to be tough, you can't be weak," or what they think weak is by being vulnerable.
Yeah.
So do you think that's still prevalent nowadays, or you think it's just a wide range problem in general?
I still think it's a pretty prevalent issue in our society. Like, if to give a personal example, when I was in 6th grade, I used to, like, before that, I used to cry a lot. Like, I was a pretty emotional guy. But then my teacher pulled me aside one day and just told me, boys don't cry. And, like, for an adult to say that to a child when he's like, 10 or 11, it had a huge impact on me. And I didn't notice how unhealthy it was until, like, last year. I started, like, consistently going to, like, therapy and, seeing, like, who I was, like, holistically. I admired that person. I thought, oh, wow, she's so right. Like, I shouldn't be crying at all. Like, emotion should be kind of shoved down deep. And that's just kind of how it was. I didn't really cry until, like, something super just, like, bad would happen to me. And I'd kind of just let it all out. But I certainly think that mental health, not even just for men, but just for people in general, are super stigmatized. Like, it's just, like, because mental health affects people in different ways. It's not just, like, crying or being, like, super emotional. Like, it affects people in different ways. And I think that there's only a certain idea of what mental health is and how it affects people. And I think that's the issue. Like, we don't notice what mental health even is and how it affects different people, because the whole chemicals in the brain and our brains are all different. We react to it in different ways. That's why if you were on medication is different for everyone. Not everyone's going to be on the same medication and act the same way. So,
Yeah, so, I mean, do you feel that the suppression of your emotions, crying wise, also suppressed emotions like happiness?
yeah, for sure. Like, it just kind of made, like, it set an expectation for me that if I'm not always happy, I should be just sad. And like, it definitely affected, like, how I presented myself. And I didn't even notice it until, until it got too bad. And then I was like, my parents would start noticing, my friends would start noticing. And then it just takes, all it takes is one sentence for that to happen too. And it's like, it's crazy to think about. So,
Are you religious?
I am, yes.
Catholic?
I am.
Yeah, so we were just recording in the chapel, and it's Nelson Pye. It's just we're trying to bring sports into, like, how, because he, during halftime or before game or something like that, he always says a prayer.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to emphasize, I mean, I'm personally not very religious, but I do understand that being vulnerable with something, whether it be your therapist, your priest, God himself, that's important because it's the time when you're actually being true to yourself.
Yeah.
When there's no judgments. And something like, I understand that a therapist is still a human. So God doesn't judge, I mean, we don't even know if he's, exists. It's all about belief. And so
Yeah.
if you believe in God, then I'm sure most people should believe that he's going to listen to everything you're going to say and he's going to take it. And, and it's comforting almost.
Yeah, I for sure agree. Like my faith in God has definitely helped me through some rough times. Because he's there for you in a way a therapist, a friend, or family member can't. He's there for you when no one else is awake. He can be there for you at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. It doesn't matter. I think the comfort of it is what matters most. The fact that you can just feel open and vulnerable. But it all starts with that, like what you said, with that belief. Like if you truly believe, then that's when it'll help you. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm a Catholic," but don't pray every day, or don't ask God for forgiveness, or for prayers or anything like that. Like you have to be active in it, and that's when you'll find that comfort. Because at the end of the day, God is always with you, but only if you let him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So I've seen, because I'm on Instagram, I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know about that. But I've seen a very much rise in like the publicity of it, like of mental wellness and how like it's okay to, be vulnerable and whatnot. But do you think that content could be somewhat harmful or helpful for like the audience who doesn't really, know too much about it, in your opinion, if you've seen that type of content?
I'd say yes and no. Like, yes, it can be harmful because people who aren't aware of mental health set that as the heuristic, as like as the go-to idea of what mental health is. And it sets certain precedents that aren't very true. But it can be helpful in the way that it doesn't make you feel alone. Like depression, anxiety can be very isolating. They're emotions that make you feel alone. So seeing those kinds of posts or those vulnerable reels, they make you feel like you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that could help in, kind of taking away from that stress and that pain.
I mean, the only dangerous thing I can think about is when people try to just clout farm, or they're making fake reels. I feel like that can it promotes unrealistic expectations. Like when you see somebody posting themselves crying, I just had a breakdown, it's hard to tell whether somebody actually was doing that and they were trying to share with the community, or whether they're faking it. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because mental health isn't very publicized. So obviously you can't, if you film yourself breaking down, it's just weird. People don't really have an idea of what that is normally, so they don't, obviously they're gonna think it's odd and it's weird. But there are different coping mechanisms for different people. People might do that and might make that choice to post it on Instagram.
Okay.
And while it may feel odd, maybe that's what they need to kind of feel comfortable. And yes, I mean, there's always that risk that they're using it for clout, which might be true. But that doesn't take away from how much it might be helping someone who's watching from the other side of the screen.
That's true.
Yeah, definitely. I do agree with that. And I know that there's a lot of coping mechanisms that people can do, like listening to music, hanging out with friends. What's one? Well, not everyone might really have one that's similar to you. What was one that really got you through, tough times, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah. I'd say going to the gym.
Ooh, yeah, you're right up my alley.
Yeah, it's just because at the gym, it's just everything kind of fades away. Your problems don't really exist when you're at the gym. You're just you're there for yourself. You're not there for anyone else. At the gym, it's just about you. You don't have to focus on, your grades at school, or this person you're talking to, or anything else, or your friends. It's all about who you want to be as a person and how you can affect that. So for me, yeah, it's been the gym. Like it's just that self-care what that really matters because no one's gonna love you if you don't love yourself.
You articulated it really well because this whole time I've been like, okay, so it's like obviously certain hormones are released that help you relax when you exercise, but the fact that you're just actually focusing on yourself, I didn't actually think of that. And there's also the aspect that some people, I think, go to the gym and they have unrealistic expectations. I think social media is a very large contributor to that.
For sure.
Because you see guys online and they're like on every sort of drug imaginable, and then you're like, oh, I can probably get there, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah. For social media, yeah, it's just like that kind of culture is super just unproductive. Like it just doesn't produce good results because then it sets high expectations for you, and those people are like what between like 20s to 30s, and you're like what 15 wanting to look like Samsu. Like it's unrealistic, and it's like kind of unfair. Like it kind of puts you in a bad spot, and that's when the gym becomes counterproductive. It doesn't help you in the way that it should. Because you're like there's this quote that I like that I don't know where I heard it from, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Comparison is the thief of joy. Like it's if you constantly compare yourself to other people and think that, oh, I'm not good enough, like I'm not good as he is or as she is, or I'm not like as buff enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not like all these things that like God made you in a specific way that's totally unique to everyone else. You are not going to be the same person as the one sitting across from you or sitting next to you. Like you might be similar because we're all made in God's image, but we're not. It's just unrealistic, and it's a very counterproductive expectation to set for yourself because then it puts you in a spot of if you don't reach that goal, you're going to become very criticizing of yourself. You're going to think, oh, I'm not good enough, or why couldn't I reach that goal if they could? It just doesn't help. And I feel like the only person you should be comparing yourself to is the person you were yesterday. So yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, definitely. So
The person you were yesterday. Okay.
and what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like that. No, there's like I was saying I was on Instagram the other day, and I was looking at this one actor, and he's like, me. Actually, I think it was Matthew McConaughey, and so he was saying he's like, my role model is me in 10 years. He's only focusing on himself. Now, if it's not Matthew McConaughey, don't sue me, okay? So.
Yeah, definitely. Because I've seen like on Instagram and whatever, that there's like these big buff bodybuilders saying, "Oh, you have to do this, you have to take this, you have to be on this," and then you start seeing like a bunch of people who are taking like different steroids or different things just to get to that image, that body image, at least specifically speaking on this, to a point where they're pushing themselves too far. And I've seen that a lot, especially here at Loyola. I've seen some kids who are going through that, and I'm like, they're going through those situations and making those decisions just because people have been telling them, oh, you have to do it this way in order to get to your goal. When realistically, they should just focus on themselves and get there in a way where they're not even harming themselves. Because even though they're not technically like even though they're just taking like steroids or different methods, they're still harming themselves in a different way.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that's an important thing that we brought up, how social media does have an impact on people, even if they don't even feel it at that point.
And the way you're saying it damages people in a different way is, I mean, it does, like, roid rage is a thing, You do actually ruin your mental health. And there's tons of bodybuilders who end up beating their wives because they just can't control their own hormones. It's horrible.
Yeah, for sure.
So just to ask this question, it's a very open-ended question, and it could definitely change in the future, of course, but how do you see for youth specifically, like our age, how do you think mental health is looking like? Are we going in a good direction, not just for Loyola, but like the world in general, like where we're going within that direction of mental health?
I think we're going in a pretty good direction, like compared to how it was a few years ago or like or generations ago. Like mental health was rarely talked about, and it was like the idea for a man was if you're a man and you're feeling stuff, suck it up. This just wasn't. There were unfair expectations held for a lot of people, not only men, but just like women, people in general. It was unfair, and it was just counterproductive. So I do think we're going in a better direction, but I don't think it'll happen instantly.
Yeah, of course.
Like everything takes time, especially things that are hard. Like mental health is a difficult issue to address because it affects people in different ways, and it's hard to address that in a way that isn't triggering to others. So, but I definitely think we're heading in the right direction. It's not even for like Loyola, but just people in general. Like people are becoming more vulnerable, more open. Family dynamics are changing throughout the years. So, and I feel like therapy is also getting, more accessible to people, especially with insurance. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you said mental health now, so we've established it's going in a more positive direction. And I hope I articulate this properly. You can see in religion, you can see in like self-help books, you can see everywhere. We're all working towards the same goal. Most of the time, if you're reading the right books, we're working towards improving the person, being a healthier person. I mean, I was reading Relentless by Tim Grover.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been saying that like 20 times, but I started reading it a week or two ago, and he says, don't compare yourself to others, right? I mean, and that's the same thing that mental health is saying, but I think that mental health has gotten a bad rap, partially because it's uncomfortable to be vulnerable with yourself, especially in this world in which we're constantly stuck on our devices. We don't actually have time to think about ourselves and be alone with our thoughts. And it's this constant distraction that leads to us also comparing ourselves to others because we don't know ourselves well enough to talk about ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's like you articulated it very well, to be honest. I don't know why you weren't tripping about that, but it's mental health is just it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, and people just don't like talking about it because then it makes them feel a certain way. You don't want to address it's hard to address the issue. That's why there's like a lot of people struggling with drug usage and like roids, and opioids. Like mental health is often coped with, like mental health issues are often coped with substances that aren't going to help. Like alcohol, for example, just is a depressant, and like it's just true. Like it lowers your serotonin levels, and you're just gonna feel horrible. So yeah, I just feel like mental health is hard to address. Like that's the just flat out blunt explanation of it. It's hard to communicate. It's hard to be open and vulnerable. But the fact that it's happened and people have become better people from it, I've become a personal witness of that, not only of my own story, but of other friends. Like vulnerability does incite change, and that's why no one wants to be vulnerable, because people hate change, especially when you're in that mentally stuck state. You hate to be you don't want yourself to change, whether it's for the good or the bad. You want to be stuck in that moment because that's what's become comfortable for you. And that's why it's become so hard to address unless you're in certain situations, is because people don't want to change. And that's just kind of the reality of the situation. And then so we address that and make it normal for people to be vulnerable, make it regular for people to, be open with their friends or family or, teachers and stuff like that. Until that's become normal, then mental health will always be an issue that is often not talked about.
Like a subculture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I love the change part because I think I went into this, and you can listen to my part with Dr. Carpenter when the episode comes out. I'm a little skeptical about mental health, and I feel like slowly but surely, just recording the podcast, just researching on these topics, I've become a lot more open to it as a whole topic, and I mean, that's our goal for filming this episode as well. Shoot, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, let's just let that be the thought for now.
But just to say, with Suvir, he's someone, to everyone who's hearing this, he's someone who was very closed off about what mental health was. He didn't know too much about it. He was still learning about it. And he was actually one of the first people I actually opened up to about, my mental health personally. So it doesn't matter who that person is out there, who you feel comfortable opening up with. It's just that you are comfortable, you're in a situation where you feel, okay, I can trust this person, even if they don't see the same things as I do, or you have different opinions. Just knowing that they're there for you and you feel comfortable, that's all you need to do. And as Marwin said, which I really liked, was that I do say sometimes to my friends, is embrace the awkwardness of it. It's not going to be easy for you to say the hard stuff, you know? It's going to feel different at first, but it's going to be it's a good different that you need to feel eventually. And so yeah. So just to wrap it up, do you have any last words you'd like to share, Marwin?
Sure. I have one last thing to say. It's okay to not be okay. Like just to kind of think about that. Like it's fully okay for you to feel horrible. But just know that you're gonna get through it, and people are always there for you. That's all I got.
But going off of that, it's okay not to be okay, people. Okay? We're all human at the end of the day. We all go through struggles. We all go through highs and lows. That's what we are. That's what God created us to be. Not to be perfect, but to go through the cycle of the toughness of being a human, and then like the highs and joys of being a human.
Yeah, so where can they find you, Marwin?
So on the email Dr. Carpenter sent out, marwinpo.palines@lhsla.org.
Memorize.
I'm usually in the counseling office, but if not, I am on the planter right next to the old Live Like Braun Memorial planter.
Okay.
But you start around this couple of weeks, I have to work on my college up, so I will be in the counseling office.
All right.
Probably. Yeah, feel free to reach out to anyone. Not only just me, but Dr. Carpenter. If you want to reach out to a student, there's me, Hugo, a couple of other seniors, Robbie, Carson, Mateo, Albert. Just know that there are people out there, and your counselor as well, who care for you and don't want you to feel alone in this process. So, yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, man. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for coming on here, Marwin. We're glad we had you on here, and that's our student section of mental health on Cups on the Mic.
All right.
Cool.